getting back to the beginnings of your story, how did this all started? Like, how did you even start? How did you even come up with, this idea of trying businesses online and making full-time income from this and making YouTube channel? What's your story behind it?
Yeah, no problem sharing that. So I think a lot of people in this space can probably relate to my story. It started for me with frustration from working for other people and being in
Mhm.
the 9 to 5, feeling limited, feeling like I wasn't using any creativity. It was all repetition and routines, feeling uh, unappreciated maybe as well. And
Mhm.
I just basically thought I felt like I had more potential, more to give, and more to achieve in life than just sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day, filling in spreadsheets, and being bored all day. So this feeling sort of built up over a few years, and I hit a point 2 years ago where I was just like, I need to try something else. I need to, even if it fails, at least I tried trying to live a new way of living. I tried this new lifestyle. So I decided to cut all ties, to quit that job, leave my nice marketing job in London, and to become a backpacker in Canada for the year. So I completely changed my my
It's a bit of a
situation.
change, huh?
It was a very big change, yeah. And I went over there with, a very small amount of savings, not a lot of savings. So the pressure was on, really. I set myself this task of I need to learn alternative ways of making money. I didn't want to go back to a full-time employer and fall back on what I know and what's comfortable. I wanted to really set myself this challenge of becoming independent and being my own boss and just being in control of my life more. So yeah, that was the driver, really. Just I looked back and I said, something's not really been right for the last 5, 6 years. I need to change it. And this was the way I identified and decided I was going to change my life, by trying to become more independent and by documenting that through this YouTube channel, well, my YouTube channel, and seeing how it went.
So your turning point was basically going on this backpacking trip to Canada and self-realization that, hey, like I do want to come back to this lifestyle in London of like sitting in 9 to 5, and I want
Yeah.
freedom and I need to sustain myself somehow.
I'd say the turning point probably happened before that. It happened while I was in my job. And Canada was just a good way for me to force myself into this new lifestyle. I could have stayed in England, but it was very likely that I would have just moved into another job, and stayed in stayed with what I knew. I wanted to be in a new environment, a new climate, around new people, and really sort of push myself and force myself into that change. So Canada was the way I could implement that change. But the mental turning point happened a lot, like long before I actually left and started doing it.
Hmm. And
I
why did
think
you go ahead? Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think from your story you can kind of relate to that as well, right? Being unhappy in the 9 to 5 and wanting to become more entrepreneurial and more free.
100%, 100%. It's the same like my story, and it's I guess it's very very similar to everyone. Like all of us have this like boredom from like regular job, or I see some people want to avoid winter, or some people want to be paid for results that they are bringing, not per time. Some people want to feel like they're growing and building something. But most importantly, I think all of us want to feel free and independent. So I
Mhm.
guess that's a big turning point for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about this as well since I've been
Hmm.
doing this, you know, living this new lifestyle, and I feel like when you're young and you're brought up and you're raised, you're kind of taught that you can do anything you want to do. You can be anything you want to be. There's a world of potential and possibility there, and you go through education and university on that belief system, and then you leave education and go into the working world and you do what everyone told you to do, and that it just naturally leads you into like a limited life, like
Hmm.
a job where there is not really there's a glass ceiling, there's a maximum level you can get to,
Hmm.
but you're not going to have the freedom or the excitement that you were sort of promised and led to believe you're going to have when you were younger. And I think the people that actually do get to that stage and live that lifestyle that they actually dreamt of and expected when they were younger are the people that actively try and change things and go against the norm and actually put the time and the effort in to make this life for themselves. And I think that's kind of what happened to me. You know, I got into the working world 5 years in and I was like, what's happened? Like, this isn't what I expected, you know, when I was becoming an adult. So I decided to change it myself and make this new lifestyle for myself.
And why did you start YouTube channel? Was it something you enjoyed in terms of making videos, or what happened? Why?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always been into photography, video, and little like creative projects in the past. I've always sort of built things. So I think I had this creative need that I had to fill anyway. And so that kind of fed into it. And I know myself, and I know that if I tell people I'm going to do things, and if I put something out there, I'm more driven to do it because I feel like I'm held accountable. You know, I've said I'm going to do something, people expect me to do it. If I don't do it, I'm going to look, you know, like I've got no, like there's nothing behind my words, you know, that there's no commitment
Right.
there, or there's, you know, that I'm just changing my mind all the time. So I knew if I ramped that up, I amplified that, and I put this sort of pledge, this commitment out to the world, you know, to as many people as possible, it would increase the likelihood of me actually seeing it through and doing it to completion. So it was as much for me to sort of hold myself accountable and increase the chances that I'd actually do it as it was for any other reason, like financial reason or other things.
Mm-hmm. Very, very interesting. So to
Yeah.
keep yourself accountable, and then it
Yeah,
blew
pretty
up,
much.
and then it blew up, and then
Yeah,
it started growing. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's been a nice steady growth over the last 2 years, and in the last few months, it's actually started to grow a bit quicker now, and I can see the growth sort of scaling up. So I'm really lucky. Like I said, it was originally put out there to hold myself accountable, and it's actually growing into something else now. So it's worked out great. I'm really happy with it.
What was the general mindset that you were going with when you started running businesses? And obviously you failed a few times, as everyone does. So what was the thing that kept you going? So it's a little bit more of a human question, not really technical, a little bit more mindset slash spiritual question. Some people say, hey, I just figured that I have to be more abundant and share more content. Some people say, hey, I just, I'm trying to figure like, what is the mindset that you had in the back of your mind going on for the last few years,
Yeah.
getting you from where you were in this corporate environment to being free and making money to sustain yourself 100% online. So obviously it was a hard journey, hero's journey. And what was at the back of your head going on there
Yeah.
all the time?
So
It's a
yeah,
little bit hard.
there's a natural drive, but I think the main contributor, the main reason for that drive is probably it's just need, really. You know, I'm not from a very wealthy, affluent background. I'm from a single parent family, and we have a financial class system in the UK. So the lower class in the UK, you know, so I've never really been able to. I've never really had financial help, if that makes sense, from my family. I could never expect help, and I've not got a problem with that, you know. But I've always sort of had to make my own way, so I could never expect like a big grand, like, you know, some people get cars for their birthday and holidays paid for the family. I've always had to sort of pay for things myself and do things on my own. So I reached a point when I was like 24, 25, where I realized people around me were sort of I was living in London, central London, and people around me were a lot more comfortable than me. They could afford to do a lot more things than I could, like go to nice restaurants and go on nice holidays and things. And I just didn't have the opportunity. And I was actually struggling in London. I was struggling to pay my rent and just to pay for food and to live a social lifestyle every month. Like I was struggling to break even. And it got to a point where I realized I don't really have a safety net. You know, I'm from a modest background. If everything went wrong today with my job and stuff, there isn't really anything for me to fall back on. And I think that realization that I'm kind of on my own and I need to take control of myself and make opportunities for myself. It was like a light bulb that happened in my head. Like, I need to be more proactive, and aggressive might be a bit strong, but just focused and
Hmm.
working towards a goal, and working towards building up some financial safety net, a financial cushion, and creating things for myself rather than relying on a boss to give me, a promotion or to give me a nice wage, or hoping that, and knowing that there's nothing that's going to come from the family. I just knew that I need to sort of create this lifestyle for myself. And that's been the driver, that coupled with the fact that I knew that I didn't like working the 9 to 5. I felt limited and unfulfilled there. I just said, entrepreneurship, independence, I have to make this work. I'm going to keep going. And it's just that drive that's kept me going, really. Does that make sense? I know I kind of jumped to a few
Perfect
different
sense.
things.
100%, 100%. Like, makes perfect sense. Um, it's different than what kept me going. But it makes perfect sense. Like, I totally understand it. It makes 100% sense. I do resonate with this, and I think there is a lot of people in the same situation, and they just know they don't have better choice, really, and they could go to work for a corporation, but if they want to have life full of, independence and freedom and do cool things, they know they can't. Like,
Uh-huh.
probably it's not gonna work as well as trying something on your own. I don't know if you
Yeah.
agree, but that's
No,
that
yeah.
was my.
I feel like you're vulnerable if if you go down the typical route that people say is the safe, comfortable
Mhm.
route. I feel like you're actually more vulnerable because you're relying on one source of income completely. You're relying on someone else to pay you and to help you live. And if that company goes out of business or your boss decides that they don't need you anymore,
Mhm.
you have one source of income that's cut off and you're completely exposed. And unless you find a job, pretty quick, or you have some nice savings behind you, you're actually in quite a vulnerable situation. So, you mentioned that I tried different business models on my channel and
Mhm.
a few of them at the same time. And that's all down to the fact that I'm trying to build multiple sources of income up at the same time rather than relying on one income source. So I'm not as vulnerable as most people. If one income source fails, I still have 2, 3, 4 income sources every month paying me money. So it's just trying to make a lifestyle where I'm more secure and
Mhm.
less stressful.